Okay. So I want to welcome our listeners and our viewers to Inner Shakti Podcast. And today's guest is a super dear, amazing, incredible friend of mine. And she's been a sister to me on this journey. And it's just been completely magical. And that is my beloved Emily Artemis, Aarti. I call her Aarti. You can choose any one of the above. There's no preference. As you like and as you feel in the moment. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a beautiful introduction.
Somehow it's so you too. Unattached. Free. So I think I first met you in 2013 maybe, or
I think actually 2014
it was
in India.
It was at Rishikesh, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. And I heard about you, of course, before because your name was just known in our sort of circle of friends there in India. So yeah. But I think we really connected in this last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it became clear that we really have a special bond during that time.
Yeah, as we've kind of said to each other before, possibly for many lifetimes, the way that we clicked before really ever actually, I don't know.
Something.
Yeah.
There's definitely something.
The inexplainable.
Yeah. So we have a special bond with India. We've had a lot of the same teachers in India. We've been on this journey well over 5 years, 5 years since we've known each other. And then even before that, exploring spirituality in India and in other places as well. So I invited Aarti, who I refer to as Aarti, on the program today because she has a very beautiful energy within her. And I've seen her and witnessed her really like ride the spectrum of states, of possible states, and go into very, very, very high states, but then also come back. And she seems to me to be someone that has a really amazing ability to ride a full spectrum of experience, and someone that I really admire as well in terms of her devotion and dedication towards a spiritual path. I mean, she has devoted her whole life. She lives at Anuttara Ashram in northern Canada. This is a very beautiful ashram that is completely surrounded by, you said hundreds of kilometers in all directions of wild, raw forest.
I mean, there's little villages of the Nishka people who are native to that land, but yeah, I mean, there's lots of forest and then ocean, so.
Yeah, it sounds really magical, and she's just given her life to this ashram with her and her husband, Thomas. And they do incredible work there, yoga retreats and teacher trainings, and they're constantly inviting amazing teachers as well to come and visit and offer what they know. Mm-hmm. So yes, you are just a wealth of beauty and spirituality, and I wanted you to come on the program today to talk a little bit about your personal life experiences, and you are especially drawn to Sri Yantra, it sounds like.
Sure, yeah. I think, I mean, at least in terms of, first of all, I just have to say, you have me blushing a little bit. You really,
I can't help myself.
Yeah, in terms of your Inner Shakti podcast and that work, then yeah, I would have to say that it's the Sri Yantra, and in terms of form, that I feel a particular amount of devotion and love towards.
For our listeners and our viewers, I asked Aarti to bring with her like a goddess or a form of Devi, of the goddess, that she feels a special resonance with, or that she had received some teachings from. So what she ended up choosing was the Sri Yantra. So maybe you could talk about the yantra a little bit and what it is. I'm happy to hold up a picture too when you're ready for it.
Sure. I think maybe first it's worth mentioning just that in Tantra, the divine can manifest in three different forms, through sound, which would be mantra, through the physical image of a deity, which we commonly see of Shakti or Radha or Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kali, but in the form of a human. And then the third form that the goddess can take is in the form of the yantra, which is similar to the one that you have there. And this particular yantra is the Sri Yantra. So we can see a yantra typically has the square, which is the kind of earth element, the four gates for the four directions, and various numbers of petals can also be incorporated to signify different things. And the circle contains the energy of the yantra, which is the 9 triangles that we have at the center there. So this yantra is the Sri Yantra, or sometimes the Raja Yantra, I think it's referred to as, which is the king of yantras, or the great yantra. And generally in my life, I try to not be a cliche. And so it's a little bit of a cliche to choose this yantra because it's the most popular yantra and most well recognized. And it's used in many different traditions, not just Tantra, but Kashmir Shaivism and Vedanta. Householders who are Hindus will also put it on their altar and worship it. So then it also is very well known across traditions.
I think we can also say that in spiritual communities of the West, it's just seen almost everywhere now.
Yeah.
It's on clothing, it's on advertisements.
I think it's on your ring.
I'm wearing it on my finger. It's everywhere. And I think a lot of people would recognize it, but many people don't know what is the actual meaning behind it and why is it even significant. So
yeah,
we'll talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's largely related with Tripura Sundari. And this is because she is considered to be the goddess of the 3 realms. And we could simply put that as the physical body, the mental body, and the spiritual body, or maybe that which does not have a body, spirit, divinity itself. I personally don't really feel so much connected with Tripura Sundari, but she is one way of trying to understand the yantra. And if you go to different traditions, they will understand it in different ways, in that some people, even there are 9 trichomes or triangles, and there's 5 facing down, which represent the feminine or Shakti, and then there's 4 facing up, which represent Shiva, or the masculine energy. And then you can see at the center there's a little bindu, a tiny little dot at the center. And even this is largely argued. Some traditions don't put the dot, some just leave it blank, and that space is supposed to represent that which is beyond both the masculine and feminine, the unmanifest, the indescribable. So, and also, I'm not sure if I mentioned, but different traditions will even worship it in different ways. And for the common householder, and when I say householder, I just mean a person who isn't a sadhu, or someone who's living at home, but also still having spiritual practices, generally having devotional practices to the Sri Yantra will just usually won't lead to enlightenment, but will instead lead to at least many blessings in our life, in terms of both financial as well as love and health and the rest.
So if you're listening and you don't have a visual of it, you can Google Sri Yantra and then you'll be able to see what she's speaking to exactly. But it's a very, very beautiful geometric image and also very powerful as well. Yeah. So you mentioned as well that that there was something personal for you about the Sri Yantra somehow, and it affected. So I want to hear a little bit about what kind of experience you had.
Sure. I guess I could just simply start by saying around, I think it was 2012 onwards, up until today, I had certain significant awakenings. Sorry, I have a teacher who tells me that I shouldn't talk too much about them. So
okay.
And I think generally I agree with this. It resonates pretty deeply with me, and that if we share our spiritual experiences or lack of experience, let's say, with others, then it becomes nothing but a story. And so we must treasure these things because they are the most treasurable. So to say it more simply, just that there were certain recognitions that started to happen in my life from 2012 forward that started to become more and more a part of my everyday life, and to start to, I can't really explain it other than just there was recognitions and some deep seeing, and some clarification came through teachers, which would then bring deeper understanding. And when I say understanding, I don't mean from here. There was just a knowing that started to come from the pulsate from the heart. And so many years go by, and I am still learning to live more and more from this place of recognition. And I saw this yantra, and somehow I knew that yantra represented what I was knowing in my heart. And again, it came from the heart. It seems still very silly to my mind to love a geometric shape the way I might love a family member or a deep loved one. And I feel as though I know this yantra in my heart, but yet I actually don't know very much about it theoretically, I guess. As I was explaining to you previously, I tend to, as a spiritual practitioner, move more from my heart and my body, and I'm a little bit standoffish of studying theology, not because it's lesser or because it doesn't work, because I know it works for some people, but for me in particular, once it's in my head, then I create stories from there, and my understanding starts to come from there. So my relationship with the Sri Yantra is unfolding in a more natural way or fluid way, I guess, rather than from the scriptures.
That's very beautiful, and that in itself is a teaching in a way, you know. And I think it's so beautiful the way you put it about it's not a theoretical or knowledge-based or theory-based understanding. It's not like you can explain what each point means and each petal, and there are people that can do that, and that's really valuable and really great, but that's not what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
We're talking about
there was a time where I looked into it slightly because the mind has this desire to understand, and I looked into it and I got more or less some confirmation. And but the thing was, the confirmation was coming up from here again, you know, for me. When I opened the book, it was like, oh, wow, okay, that explains what I'm feeling with that thing. But I don't, at this point in my life, I'm maybe too juvenile of a practitioner, let's say, to be able to go into theology too deeply. Maybe I never will be ready to. But instead, I'm just resonating with her and letting her show me where I'm supposed to go with this.
It's so beautiful. In a way, it's just so beautiful because it's so also freeing not to have to know. And we're so used to being in a society where knowledge is what supposedly is taking you. You have to know. If you want to be an engineer, you have to learn engineering. If you want to do, like, knowledge is, and like mental understanding is the way most of this world seems to run. So what you're speaking to is so beautiful. And I also really want to encourage anyone out there that might be listening to, like, if you hear yourself in this, to really let that sink in, because sometimes our body has messages for us that the mind doesn't even necessarily understand. And learning to trust your heart and your body and that devotion that comes from within, even if it doesn't make any sense, is like one of the wildest rides in life, you know. You're just, and it's the best also. Like, such a joy of existence to be able to dance that.
Yeah, and it just, I think, unfortunately, as you say, it's not really taught in our schools how to process from the ground up rather than from the top down. And it does take a lot of surrender to process from the bottom up, because you need to learn to move in a way that isn't taught in our society or our school. Or not only is it not taught, but it's not usually held as valuable or as evidence, or, you know, as truth. It can't be true. It's just a feeling.
Yeah.
Well, most of the times my feelings lead me to truer places than my thoughts. For me personally, my thought is more of an obstacle than my physical sensations or experiences of emotion.
So I love the way you just put that. More often than not, my physical feelings lead me to a more true place than my thoughts. That's like in a nutshell the whole thing. It's really beautiful, really well said. Yeah. Yeah, and it's a loss also for society that we don't have that teaching. And you know, I think there's a lot of women and people out there that have that impulse, but then they shut it down because the rational mind comes in and it's like, no, that's just crazy. That's just me thinking, or me like being crazy, or I can't trust that. Like, I think that's probably one of the most common mechanisms in society that we're doing constantly without realizing it.
And really, it's kind of absurd when you think about it, that we trust these abstract images or sounds that we hear in our head, like that is somehow more valid than a sensation in the body, when actually they're both random things appearing within your awareness. No one is more true than the other. But somehow we're holding on to these thoughts and beliefs and ideas and saying that these random manifestations within consciousness are more important than these other random manifestations in consciousness that come in the form of feeling in the body or emotion.
So now you're kind of taking it even a step deeper.
Possibly.
Yeah, I think so. And this is where I start to see like the non-dual Emily, Artemis, Aarti show up, because then you go, and this is, I love the feeling body space, so I tend to dwell there. But I really appreciate when you can go even a step deeper and talk about, like, you know, just the space that's even bigger than that, you know?
Yeah, and I think depending on the being, each space, let's call it, could be a possibility to step more into the unmanifest, or that aspect of themselves which exists before any of this rises, before a thought rises, before a feeling rises, sensation, etc. In that, for some people, it may be through inquiring into thoughts, who thinks this thought, who is this I that says this in this sentence, and so on and so forth. But then there's another way to inquire, which is just simply into the sensations and into the feelings. And yeah, well, we can do this more with the meditation that we'll do in the end, but yeah, perceiving these within the same space, or recognizing that they arise within the same space.
Very nice. Yes, I'm excited to do that meditation with you. But first, I just want to let our listeners or our viewers know that Aarti and I have an offering that we've created together, or in a way it's sort of arrived for us. We had the inspiration last year, I think, when we were sitting in the Ganga in Rishikesh with our yonis immersed, and we were just kind of getting high off our conversation. From what I remember, we were just talking and like getting so excited and sharing ideas about life and the divine feminine and what is that and what isn't that. And eventually from that birthed a retreat / course that's going to be happening this coming August and September in Canada. So maybe Aarti, if you want to share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think I would at least like to share that I feel that in some ways that this was unfolding for both of us before we'd even met each other. I mean, that's what we shared when we were both in the Ganga, and that we both felt called to start stepping into doing something along these lines. But what I feel is that we needed each other to do it, as we've both discussed, that we really complete each other in that we've somehow both been walking the path, but in different ways, and yet these ways complement each other. And we've also said that sometimes not that I don't have the Shakti energy in me, but that I tend to bring a bit more of the Shiva energy, and you tend to bring a bit more of the Shakti energy. And in that, we're able to, or as you say, a course is able to, a retreat or a flowing of energy is able to come through both of us in a way that is very harmonious and elementary and complete. It's not leaning to one side or the other. And yeah, I think that we received the darshan of the Ganga, her blessings, and she's pushed us to go forward with this.
Yes, absolutely. And now it seems to be unfolding quite easily, quite naturally. And we have, I don't know if there's a limit of spaces, but right now the registration is open. It's for women or women identified. And we are going to be talking a lot about gender and deconstructing sort of imposing conditioning that you might have about how to be, how to behave. And we want to kind of break that up a little bit to give you more freedom in expressing who you are. And we're also going to be doing a lot of focus on leadership and embodied leadership, and hopefully right from the start putting the participants into a place of power.
Yeah, we've discussed this as well, but just that typically in a matriarchal society, it will be run in the energetic shape of a circle, and that you can't really tell who is the so-called leader in the group, and each being has a right to share their place and their story. While in a patriarchal society, this is typically run in the shape of a triangle, very few at the top and a lot at the bottom. And so in a way, this is also going to be a learning lesson for Alicia and I, in that it has been deeply ingrained in all of us that there's one teacher at the front and all of us sitting at the back. You know, there's mom and dad at the front of the car and us in the back. There's those few, yeah, exactly. Those few at the top of the capitalistic society and the rest of us at the bottom trying to climb to the top. So as much as something else in terms of sacred geometry is the circle is the most chaotic energy. And maybe this was why so long ago they were like, all right, we got to put the circle aside and just step into the triangle, get some order around here.
Too much chaos.
We're just herding cats. It's
too much energy. Okay. That's hilarious.
But yeah, and so in that, I think it's going to be a really beautiful experience for all of us, and a needed experience to know what it's like, to not be told that I have less in me, or I'm lacking, and I need to take this course, training, retreat so that I can have more, so that I can be better. But no, in fact, you are already fully complete and perfect right in this moment, right now. And we want your perfection to step into the circle, because we need that for all of us here to learn.
Yes. Jai Ho.
Jai Ho.
I'm really feeling that, your words just now about, like, one way I think that I would put it is like not to take on another identity. It's growth isn't necessarily about taking on more and more identities over and over again.
No, in fact, I would say it's more about trying to take off as many identities as you can.
Right. And in certain moments, you might need to take on an identity. It's not like black and white, but that I feel that as well in this retreat a lot, is that it's more about the stripping down. It's the stripping down of like the falsities and getting really raw and connected, and just expressing what's there underneath. And I think that you and I both are coming with this strong attitude to support that in the people that come.
Yeah, and I think also it's worth mentioning that, at least speaking personally, and this doesn't mean that this is a truth, but coming from my personal self, sometimes in women leaders or feminist leaders or feminism itself, there can be some poo-pooing on the masculine or men. And a big part of this training is, like, when I look out into the world, I see the women rising. I see the women like taking leadership roles. They're wearing both the pants and the skirt, and they have the freedom to be more and more every day whatever they want to be. And that is not to say that they don't suffer discrimination or hardships for having to be a woman. But I'm looking at my brothers, and I see that they don't get the opportunity to wear both the pants and the skirt. They don't get, just this past Christmas, family members came over to celebrate, and men and women hugged, women and women hugged, men and men shook hands. Because men don't have the freedom to be able to show each other this kind of intimacy, this, like we're talking about, this more emotional, feeling-based part of their being is completely repressed. And so instead we see more anger from the masculine. And so a big part of this course to me is taking these already strong women and empowering them to start holding the hands of their brothers, and to give them the support to start moving into their full being. Because I think it's very much lacking for men. And also, not to say that there's only two genders.
Yeah, right. This is also really important as well.
Yeah, I think in some ways, I think that people who have more than one gender, or who are not identifying with the sex that they were born with, have more insight into this, and that there's more. They may intuitively know there's more to me than gender or sex, or what society is telling me I'm supposed to be like, look like, act like, because I was born with this genitalia. So this is also why I would like to open up the course to being for women identified beings, and maybe also one day for men as well.
Right.
But for now we're dealing with the moon. So
yes. Yes. Yeah, and these are all topics that we're going to go more deeply into during the course, because it's really, each one deserves like a whole night really of diving in and trying to understand, because it's really valuable. Look at these things. Yeah. Yay. So we will close with a meditation. Oh, did we say the dates already? The dates are August 29th to September 12th.
There you go.
And you can sign up through Anuttara Ashram. You can find their website. It's ANUTTARA.org.
.org.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is worth mentioning that the spaces are limited. So we are getting quite a few people wanting to sign up now, and a lot of people showing interest. So if this is something you're feeling called to, it would be good to not to put pressure on you, but to at least send out an email so we can know whether we need to be reserving spaces for you or not.
And also, we're both available to chat and talk about it. And
of course, yeah.
And for anyone interested, we'll be able to give more insight and information about what we're doing, because we have a very full course. Lots. We have a lot going on. We have to cut out a lot just to get, But yeah, it's going to be a really deep, transformative experience for sure. So I've asked Aarti to close today with a meditation. So if you're able to close your eyes, if you're not driving, or if you're just able to be in a quiet place, this would be a good time to kind of just, turn off your cell phone or just close down any other distractions. And Aarti's going to lead us in a closing meditation.
Great. Yeah, just as you said, to make sure that you take a little bit of space for yourself now to come into this meditation. And if it's not comfortable for you to close your eyes, it's perfectly fine for the eyes to be open. I would just say to keep them soft, the gaze soft. You don't need to be staring intensely at anything, even to look slightly at the ground with the eyes partially closed. And you don't need to be sitting in any particular way either. You can be sitting in a chair, you can be sitting in cross-legged position, whatever it is that feels most comfortable for you, and finding comfort is the biggest part. So this is a meditation or a style of meditation that I often lead at the ashram, and it has to do with the Sri Yantra in a way, in that through practicing this, this has led me to that space that I cannot quite speak of, that the yantra also represents. So wherever you are, closing your eyes or leaving them partially open, settling into the space, relaxing any muscles that are unnecessarily engaged. In particular, muscles around the jaw, the eyes, the neck, and the belly. Becoming aware of the breath, the gentle rise and fall. Not altering the breath, just allowing it to be as it is naturally in this moment. And become aware of sensations in the body. Maybe moving from the bottoms of your feet all the way up to the top of your head. Taking your time, lingering in any places where you may feel a particular amount of sensation. Not labeling the sensations as good nor bad either. And if the mind does try to label things, just witnessing the labeling and coming back to the felt sense in the body. And become aware of the center of your chest. the inhalation and exhalation in this area. You can feel that as you inhale, the breath comes into the center of the chest, and this area becomes more expansive. And as you exhale, the breath comes to a point just right in front of the chest. Inhaling, focusing on the inside of the chest. Exhaling, the breath touches on this place just right in front of the chest. Now, letting go slightly of the anatomical knowledge that you might have about the body and the breath, and just allowing the inhale to be in the center of the chest and the exhale to be slightly outside. So you don't need to follow the breath up and out the nose, but just transitioning your attention from inside of the chest to outside of the chest. Inhaling, awareness inside of the chest. Exhaling, awareness outside. So really the attention is just moving back and forth about 3 inches, inside and outside. And if the mind wanders, just bring it back to these 2 points. There's no need to criticize or chastise ourselves if we have thoughts come in. They're not a problem. We're not trying to stop the mind, rather than to just keep our attention on these 2 sacred points. Staying with the breath. And dropping any idea of inside and outside. Now there's just simply 2 points. The in-breath touches 1 point, and the so-called out-breath touches another. But rather there's just 2 breaths and 2 points. Allowing attention to drift naturally between these 2 places. And then as the witness or the perceiver of these 2 points, recognize that both points are appearing within you equally. The idea that one point is more inside you or intimate, and another point being outside of you, is merely a concept in the mind. Both of these points are equally inside of you as awareness. Not you as the body, nor you as the mind. Staying with the breath, keeping our attention on these 2 points, both points appearing within awareness. The points may feel different, but this doesn't matter. This is only an interpretation from the mind. Slowly we can allow awareness to expand over the entirety of the physical body. If the eyes are closed, we can open them slightly for a moment and then close them again. Recognize that sensation of seeing also appears within awareness. Just as this sensation of feeling these 2 points appeared within awareness, so too does seeing appear within awareness. And slowly we can open our eyes and recognize that although this practice seems to be coming to an end, this way of perceiving does not need to come to an end. We can see all things through all senses, including the sense of the mind, naturally rising equally within awareness. Oh, I can't hear you, love.
I said I muted myself, but I think I'm at a loss for words now. Thank you so much. Thank you for the meditation.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on this show, the podcast. And
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun. I love you too.
Thank you.